I was thinking this morning if we talk about a face for radio. Have you ever heard that?
Ooh, we should do a post that we're going to be on. So
I have been.
Meredith, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
George, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Melissa, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you. You guys will have to talk, kind of talk close to the mic.
Sure.
Although I can hear you pretty well.
Make love to the microphone.
And are you guys
So how
following the
long
crossover
do we
radio page?
Do this?
Today? An hour? It's an hour.
It's an hour. Okay.
Which goes really fast.
I bet it does.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes it's like, oh my god, we gotta talk for 34 minutes. That's,
Right.
when we're not feeling super inspired.
Right.
But generally it
There
goes
we go.
pretty fast. So yeah, if you're following the
Share.
crossover radio page,
Pretty
you should,
sure we are.
hopefully you'll get a notification.
Yep, just got one. Sharing it now.
And I started this gig with absolutely no training on any of this technical stuff, and it's like, the good news is I'm no longer intimidated by it. The bad news is I'm still about a C- student.
One day he was having trouble, like something totally disappeared from the screen, and so we don't know if, because it looks like all our mics are muted, but
Okay.
we don't know if they are or not. So.
Beautiful to touch me. I know that I'm married, 'cause I am down on my knees and waiting for something beautiful. Something beautiful.
And it's Wednesday morning, which means it's time for Building Bridges with Steve and Melissa. And today is an extra special episode of Building Bridges because we have some fantastical guests with us today.
We do. I'm super excited about, we have been planning to have them be a part of our show
Since before we started our show.
Yeah, for sure. I mean,
And we've been super excited about it. And then you guys were like, come on the show. And we're like, we're super busy that day.
George is the only person powerful enough to have his head like 2 feet from the microphone and still come across like it's nothing. I'm like up here like a half an inch from the microphone, and he's like, we were busy. And it comes in like crystal.
hey,
It's his
listen,
giant lungs.
I like to say this about George and I. Everybody is a unique part of the body. But aren't we glad God made us the mouth?
Yes.
High five, brother.
Yes. Yes.
God made us the mouth so we're big and loud.
So in case you don't know George and Meredith Shafer, it's your loss, but
For real. You guys are
but
seriously
why
missing out.
don't you fill the great wide World Wide Web listening audience in on who you are and what you do, and we will pub your awesome ministry here on Crossover Radio.
Man, thank you so much.
Awesome.
Do
Go
it,
ahead,
babe. No, it's you.
He's
Look,
drinking
he's
coffee.
drinking his
It's
coffee.
Meredith's turn to talk.
I did not bring my coffee. We
That
are.
doesn't mean you can't rip his off unless it doesn't taste like yours.
It might happen. We like our coffee the same, so
Oh, this is black and gross.
I will be checking that out
won't
here
like
in just
that.
a minute.
Melissa
Rock on, Black Coffee fans.
left the tribe and went black on her coffee, and I can't drink her
Wow,
coffee,
girl.
and she doesn't like
She's
mine either.
hardcore.
I am. I got stuff. I don't know what I got, but I
Wow.
drink black coffee anyway.
I like a little coffee
Okay.
with my creamer.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we are the co-founders and co-CEOs of S.T.O.R.M. That stands for Strategic Treatment Options and Recovery Ministries.
Nailed it.
Woo!
That wasn't always-
Thank you.
that wasn't
That
always
doesn't
the
always
case.
happen.
So how long has S.T.O.R.M been in existence?
About 14 months.
And so it took you
we're
14
brand
months
new.
to get them,
Pretty much.
but you nailed it.
Slow,
Yes.
slow learners.
And the Monday
but
midday mobile ministry.
Nailed that one too.
What?
Way to go.
Monday midday mobile ministry.
That's
Is that the one you always
right.
do in your car?
That's our storm shelter.
Yeah.
Sometimes
Okay.
it happens in our car on
so
location.
so if I was in the throes of addiction, saying Monday mobile midday ministry would be of great difficulty if I had been perhaps having
Yes.
liquid breakfast that morning.
Yes.
I would just stumble over that, something horrible.
Sometimes it's difficult even if you're under caffeinated
Uh,
as
oh.
well. So
Well, why would you leave your house and operate heavy machinery if you were under caffeinated?
that's my mistake.
If I'm in my car, I'm making sure I've been sufficiently caffeinated.
Amen.
So, did it used to be called the 4-minute count forecast something? Is that the
So
same
those
thing?
are our updates. So
Oh,
yeah,
so
those
you
are
guys
our.
have several.
There-
We got to learn from you guys.
There's
We
so
got-
so many
I don't
things
know.
going on over there at
so
S.T.O.R M.
many things.
There's
Okay.
so there's still 4-minute forecasts.
Yes, we tried to
4-minute
update.
How do you get a 4-minute forecast?
Really, when we just have time and remember to do it, then we do the 4-minute forecast. We try to update everybody.
Is that on Facebook?
Yes, and they can look at our S.T.O.R M page. We also share a page personally, and so between those two pages, you can usually find out what's going on at S.T.O.R M. We like to keep all of our friends, family, partners updated because things are always changing. That is the one thing that we can count on at S.T.O.R M is that things are always happening. We meet people in their crisis point of addiction, and so we're always trying to get better at doing that. We have storm chasers who are our boots on the ground, and they are the ones who are deployed either to that person or the people come to us, and we just try to work out their situation. We figure out what is the next best step, what is the individual blueprint that we could help them with, when you're in addiction and when your loved ones are concerned about you. Sometimes it's really like deer in headlights. You don't know what to do. And so we just try to walk with both the one in addiction and the family through each next best step until they don't need us.
Nailed it.
Yay! Look at her. She at least
George-
knows what they do.
George,
Yes.
George, and I pose this question from a place of experience. How do you deal with neither, with not being the brains or the beauty of the operation? I've dealt with this for 15 years. I'm not as smart as her, and I'm not as good looking as her. How do you
no,
deal with
that's
that?
Totally wrong. But okay.
Well, thank you for one.
George is like, I never
you're
thought
I
I
shouldn't
was
have even
either
gotten
of
out of
those
bed
things.
this morning.
You're ruggedly handsome in
You're-
your own
Man,
way.
he is. He's like, I always tell him, he's like when he wears flannel, he's like the brawny lumberjack, because he's this big.
Which really only
dude.
excites her because
Beard.
she's looking at the anticipation of me cleaning.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think you need to get him a large axe and a blue ox.
Yes.
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 For
Halloween.
those from my old neighborhood, that would be a Paul Bunyan reference.
Well, I
Yes.
just happened to notice that Steve is wearing flannel.
Flannel,
today.
but
I love
it
it.
doesn't come off the
I
same
love
on
it.
me because I'm just not nearly as brawny.
You're super brawny, man. Don't
Thank you.
sell yourself short.
When I get really angry, I turn green and bulk up instantly.
Nice.
It's like
Nice.
what roids are you shooting up? How did you get to be 500 pounds just like that?
Yeah,
So
right.
it's gamma radiation is
Yeah.
what I'm using.
Man, I really appreciate the fact that Meredith is so intelligent and she's attractive because it gives me an opportunity. I love working behind the scenes. I'm a detail-oriented type of dude, and I spend a lot of time in the back cave, getting to be creative and getting to use my gifts the way that they were always meant to be used. So, man, yeah, she's a powerhouse, man. She's an icon, and man, there's nobody more deserving.
And that is super sweet. Let
Wow.
me brag on this guy, though, for a second. When he says he is detail-oriented, that means he can take my big picture, vision, crazy, squirrels, whatever you want to call it, and he can figure out how to get us from nothing to big picture.
Do you
so
hire out
that's
Is-
why
Is
S.T.O.R M even
is he like the
I wish.
the lady who comes in the
Text
car?
to give, and maybe we can. 405-759-8999.
I'm impressed that you know your text to give. I wish we knew our text to give number.
Wait.
Can I shoot you a fake picture of the phone that has our text to give number?
I said
Yes.
ours wrong the other day.
I didn't
You
even
saw
say a
it, didn't
word.
you? Oh,
Would you? In
that's
case,
very sweet.
here's my plan. you should memorize our text to give number as well. So if you get one wrong, at
Yes.
least
If you
get it
confuse,
right.
Yes.
if you confuse it, you
Yes.
accidentally give our text to give number out.
Exactly. Yes.
I gave somebody else's some random
Yeah.
person.
And you hope it was a text to give number, not just a text.
Not just a text message. Somebody's getting all these. Give
Give.
$10, and they're like, okay.
Okay, I'll give.
I'll get. It's
No, you want them to give $500.
Sorry.
Yeah.
$10,000.
Yes.
Yes.
Bigger.
We could really use that.
But I tell you what, it's we had a few campaigns last year working on getting monthly giving, and those have kept us going.
That's what we live on. We live
Live
on
on them, right?
Bread
Those 10,
and
20,
butter.
30, $50 a month
You live on
that
a
are
monthly donation.
consistent.
Yes.
Man, it's been a lifeblood, and man, we've grown so much. We started out just Meredith and I, and then we were able to bring on Mitzi Chappell, who is
Phenomenal.
a recovery rock
She
star.
is. She's
Oh.
amazing.
We
but
are
now,
so blessed
now we have a
with her.
staff of 7.
Whenever there's an altar call at church, you know that Mitzi is walking up with somebody.
That's
Yes.
right.
There,
Yes.
If there's
Sometimes out
any-
of sheer intimidation.
Yeah.
You're getting saved today,
Yes.
man.
But she is an amazing woman.
Yeah, she
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, we are blessed.
Yeah, and you guys have a staff of 7. We have a staff of 1 and a volunteer. It's awesome.
That is how
That's how we started
we
out.
started.
And we've only been in ministry since 2013, so we need to work with y'all.
Oh my gosh. You guys crush it. I
Yeah.
cannot tell you how influential you guys are, what an inspiration you guys are. Man, just the creativity, man, you guys are the real deal, and we're blessed to be partnered up with you guys.
Oh,
And-
gosh.
And one of the places that our two ministries really intersect is when there's an addiction involved in a marriage. It puts so much stress, both on the husband and wife, but on all the kids.
Yeah.
That's right.
And a lot of times the addict will not own his addiction until he's faced with an ultimatum, and that often comes from the marriage side of things. I'm going to leave you unless you get help, and then all of a sudden they don't know where to go for help. Their only knowledge of what's available is, well, I know that AA is
Right.
out there, but what else?
Right. Right.
And my understanding is that you guys help with what else is out there.
Yeah, so what we recognize is addiction, man, to us, addiction is one of 2 diseases that convinces you don't have a disease.
Right.
That's addiction and Alzheimer's. And sometimes, man, over the past 14 months, I don't think there's been one day that looks like the next day.
Oh, definitely.
And yes, sometimes there's ultimatums that are involved. Sometimes it's very hard, difficult conversations. Sometimes it's in your face, and sometimes it's loving people from afar. Sometimes it's the presence of ministry, and sometimes it's intervening in situations that you'd much rather not want to intervene in. We recently had a situation where the more and more that we do this, the longer that we do it, and the more ingrained into this, by the way, the amazing recovery community
Yes.
here in Oklahoma is spectacular. It is full of love and cohesion, and man, we have just been accepted. We didn't have really a reason to be accepted. They just accepted us and loved us, and but man, those situations, we've recently come across a situation where we're starting to get more, I'd say, not FaceTime, but brushes with the underworld of addiction, to include the dealers and the cartels, and it's fascinating for me. I don't walk in fear. I don't live in fear. I lived in fear for too long. So it's fascinating to me to see the development and the evolution of this organization and the different turns that it takes, both good and bad. We learn from it all. I think it was Nelson Mandela said that I either win or I learn, I never lose.
I love that. That's
And
so
that
fun.
That's tremendous.
And
That's
that is
awesome.
just a mentality that we've taken on, because honestly, this ministry is too dark for us to count the losses. Too many people die. Too many people go back out into their addiction, and being that ministry of presence rather often by leaving the light on, allowing them to come back when they are ready, because to truly understand and to know the disease of addiction first comes with you actually knowing that you don't know anything about the disease of addiction. And sometimes it's they get clean and they get sober, and everybody has this big sigh of relief, and then 10 minutes later they're back out on the street. And sometimes that's the process. There's people that have run studies and statistics on people that have for people that finally come into recovery, addiction recovery touches them 10 times before they're fully. And what that touch can look like is that ministry of presence, or seeing a group of sober, fun-loving, kind. It's an authentic love. It's not a manufactured or synthetic version of it. So on those 10 touches, sometimes we get to be the first, and sometimes we get to be the 10th. But I tell you, when the word says that the harvest is plenty, but the workers are few, man, we speak in churches all the time, and man, it's great. So like 1 or 2 people will give their life to Christ, right? Which is amazing. I mean, we know that the word says that there are angels designated for the celebratory tidings of when people give their life to Christ. But man, so we speak at churches all the time. 1, 2 people give their life to Christ. We speak 2 times at City Rescue Mission at their Bridge to Life program, their Thursday night church service. Over 45 people give their lives to Christ. You want to talk about a harvest that is ready and eager and hungry, who has been trying to fill that hole in their heart, that God-shaped hole in their heart with every chemical and lust of the flesh, and it just has fallen short over and over and over. So when they see the authenticity of Jesus Christ, they're just so willing to get after it.
That's right.
You know, and it has to be encouraging when you run into a bumper harvest like that, because for a time where you get 45 people, there's going to be how many trips where you get 1 or 2, you know,
or sometimes 0, and
or
that's
0.
crazy uncomfortable.
And we're the word says that we're not supposed to grow weary in well doing, and the fact of the matter is that in both of our fields, there's plenty harvesting to be done.
Yeah,
that's right.
So that's why it's so important that we get plenty of coffee before we go out and into the mission field, so that we can keep going.
The nectar of heaven.
But what we're going to do now is we're going to take a real quick break. We will be back with more of George and Meredith after this. This is Building Bridges
With Steve and Melissa on Crossover Radio, Radio with a Purpose.
It's a sing-along, toe-tapping, big grinning, wide-eyed, bushy-tailed minute of fun brought to you by the Bethany Country Store.
Down here at the country store, we've got everything and more. Stuff you can't live without. Stuff to make you jump and shout. Food for dogs and all your pets. Garden things, ain't no sweat. Plenty to make your yard look swell. Feed for cows, horses, and gazelles. Well, hey, it rhymes.
Swinging egg chairs are now on sale at Bethany Country Store. 3 sizes and several colors to choose from. Also, insect control for home or garden. Maintain your yard with Quick Start fertilizer, fly baits, and traps. They even have made in Oklahoma jellies, jams, candies, local honey, green tomatoes, and salsas. Check out the Bethany Country Store.
Feed the hogs and kiss your wife. Get 'em mixed, there'll be some strife. Round your children up for the day and come to a place they'll want to stay. Head on out to the Bethany Country Store, 3401 North Rockwell, where there's a little bit of country in the city.
Hey, this is Big Nate, Program Director here at Crossover Radio, and I just wanted to let you know that Crossover Radio is now the flagship station for Bethany Bronco Athletics. Sponsorships will be filling up fast, so to join in and promote your business, contact the station by phone or by text at 405-494-0234 for more information. And go Broncos!
Bridges with Steve and Melissa with our fabulous guests, George and Meredith Shafer from S.T.O.R.M Ministries. Let's give it up for them.
What?
Thanks for calling us fabulous.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And beautiful. Did you call him beautiful? Meredith is beautiful.
George is
Meredith
ruggedly
George is handsome.
Ruggedly
Ruggedly.
handsome.
Rugged.
Ruggedly
Not just
Ruggedly.
That's right.
He's
Not ruddy.
no,
like,
no,
Not
rugged.
like
Hey,
Esau.
Yeah, like
Ruddy.
ruddy.
Like
Rugged.
Esau.
Rugged. That's-
Bringing it back to Bible.
Hey,
Right.
and I just want to say for all the Esau's out there, at the end of his story, he gets a pile of free stuff from his brother. So
Preach.
even if you perceive yourself as missing the blessing, God's got a backup plan for
That's
you.
right.
That there's
That is a
there's
good
some
word.
camels coming your way filled with stuff.
Amen.
Hey, you know what? We
good.
have, my mentors taught me this over time. We always have some camels around our house, just to remind us that camels bring supply. And so we're frequently
I love
talking
it.
about our camels are on the way. Our camels
That's
are
And
great.
And
isn't it
some
hump
days-
day?
It's
And
hump
it's
day.
hump day.
What?
My goodness.
What?
Hey.
And so, anyway, we're
That's
always
great.
about our camels. Sometimes we ask God to send us, like, Dad, could you send a herd? Like, we don't need a one or two.
Right.
We need like a herd. Could you
Right.
bring the herd? So,
Cattle on 1,000 hills, wasn't it?
yeah,
Yep.
or something like that.
That's it.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about your story, because everybody wants to know your story. In case if you want to really read their story, then you go to S.T.O.R.M's website, which is
S.T.O.R.M Inc. STORMINC.org.
and you buy one of their books, which is titled.
Mad Cow, a PTSD love story.
All right.
Moo.
And so, tell us a little bit about your story, because that's a big part of who you are and how you got where you're at.
Tell it.
Absolutely is. Really, the short version of our story is that S.T.O.R.M was birthed out of our own addiction crisis that we were in about 5 years ago. George was full-time active duty military. He had done his duty serving our country, deployed overseas.
Thank
Had
you, by the way, for serving our country. You
undiagnosed,
should all go ahead and
yes,
say that.
yes, suffered from undiagnosed PTSD for well over a decade. And then really all of that culminated in September 28th, 2013, a suicide attempt when he had taken some notes and drank a large portion of vodka, gone out to our children's treehouse with a shotgun. And I arrived home early the day that all of this was taking place and found him in our children's treehouse. And I really can't tell you what I said or how long we were up there. I just know that the hand of God was there.
Yeah.
Because there's no reason any of us should have walked out of that treehouse. I was 7.5 months pregnant with our fourth child at that time. He was at the end of his rope. We were at the end of our rope. With addiction comes relational issues, marital issues, financial issues, legal troubles. I mean, we had all of those things, and God met us there in that treehouse.
And one of the most important things I think you just said was that the hand of God was there, because you know what? Given our own strength and our own limitations, if you get caught in addiction, you are going to be overwhelmed by it. But when you bring God into the picture, then all of a sudden the scales tip in your favor and you can have victory. And we found that the same holds true in marriage. That when you do marriage just out of your own capacity for patience and grace and understanding, eventually you run out.
Yeah, for sure.
But when you bring God into the marriage, you're able to overcome all sorts of obstacles.
You said something I want you to talk a little bit more about. Our son, too, was in the military and was deployed to Ramadi and came back with, in retrospect, what we look at as undiagnosed PTSD, which escalated his addiction.
Right.
And at the time, I just assumed, his drug addiction is just ridiculous. It's just drug. All of this behavior is driven. There was a series where once a month for 3 months in a row, he would call and say, "I'm on my way to the ER." The first one was I had a wreck on on the dirt bike,
Just-
riding a
ju-
wheelie.
Just as a heads up to all those people with four-wheelers, Crocs are not appropriate footwear for four-wheeling, especially if you dump, because it could take a giant
And if
chunk
you're
out of
high.
your foot.
And if you're high, that's all a bad
Right.
combination, right?
Yes.
The next month he called and he said, I'm going back to the ER because I've shot myself in the leg. The next month he called, I'm going back to the ER because I was jumping out of a tree and a branch went through my bicep, and now, and all of that, we really just chalked all of that up to his addiction. In retrospect, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's PTSD. Why couldn't we see that in the moment? So because we have a lot of people who listen around the world, not just, this is on the World Wide Web, so it's around the world. So not just people who are here, but we do have a lot of soldiers who are coming back, a lot of veterans who are struggling with undiagnosed PTSD. We, as their family, as their friends, as their whatever, we just see it as the addiction. And so do you mind talking a little bit about what that looks like? Maybe what's some help you could give those people who were, say, like me, I had a son, I just didn't know what I was dealing with, and I was dealing with all the wrong things. Do you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. So, in what we do, we deal with the stigma of addiction more often than anything else.
Right.
And addiction is really seen as a very selfish disease. To that, I would say, if you find me any sin that we don't do to ourselves, I'll eat my hat, because you're not going to find one.
Right.
More often than not, the people that are struggling with addiction, it's not a good time anymore. It may have started that way, but there is always 100% of the time, it is medicating another issue.
Absolutely.
100. No, when I was 5 years old, man, I wanted to be a soldier, a cop, and a firefighter simultaneously. I never ever said, "Hey, Dad, my goal in life, I want to be a junkie.
Right.
That's what I want to do when I grow up."
Right.
So, and when it comes to an undiagnosed, first off, Ramadi, wow.
Yeah. It's kind of
That's
the armpit, right? The hellhole.
yes, wow. As far as PTSD is concerned, man, so much more is being learned about PTSD. And one of the things that kept me quiet for so long is because I was not one of those guys in the Battle of Ramadi. I was not. I went over there before the invasion of Iraq. I had some scary moments. We did have this one situation, but man, in relation to what these men and women are seeing, the level of combat, the IEDs, the kicking down doors, the firefights, I wasn't even a part of that. Yeah. And I still was diagnosed with PTSD. What we're learning is that it has a lot to do with childhood trauma, the way that you were brought up, the coping mechanisms that were instilled in you as a child, and your ability to cope with these things. And whenever you supersede that ability in a traumatic scenario, PTSD is what you're left with. And I was left with a ton of shame. In fact, since we've started our ministry, people have spoken up and said, "Dude, you didn't have it that bad," to which I agree.
Right.
And that's what we tell people. I am not a Battle of Ramadi combat soldier. That's just not who I am. And to say that I would be a huge disgrace to those who are.
Right.
But what I would say is that people are afraid of what they don't understand.
Sure.
And they don't understand mental illness, and they don't understand addiction, which is why we've chosen to utilize our platform to say this is what addiction looks like. This is also what addiction recovery looks like. Right. And this is also what a couple that loves Jesus with all of their might, all of their heart, and all of their spirit looks like. So that's, but for anybody, like you said, under the sound of our voice, who is struggling with that, let me tell you, the enemy is going to cloud your scenario, whether you're dealing with mental illness or with addiction, is going to wrap your story in shame and isolation. And for us, isolation equals death.
That's right.
There's only 3 places that addiction leads, and that's according to the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. That's jails, institutions, and death. And I am telling you, that is a fact.
Right.
And to operate in shame, we won't operate in shame any longer. We did it for too long. It was too handicapping. It was too inhibiting. Living a life of fear is one of the worst places that we've ever been.
There are no retirement communities filled with ex-cocaine dealers playing shuffleboard.
You
just
don't
doesn't
have
happen.
a role model, right?
Right.
Like, dude, look, and this is a conversation that we have with people on the regular. Like, dude, okay, look, we don't have a crystal meth user who is really thriving right now.
Yeah,
like,
right.
I mean, it's funny because I think about the movie Scarface, you know, and it's an hour and 40 minutes of glamorous drug dealer, and then he dies in a blazing shootout. You know,
Right.
Same ending. One of the three places happens to you.
Jails, institutions, and death. And let me tell you that it's okay. So when you look at the Christian walk, man, unfortunately, because the 1980s happened, okay, and I'm terribly sorry for the entire Christian community, for all of us that had to endure the 1980s of Christianity. But you look at movies like Scarface and you say, man, I want a life like that, and I want to have the respect, and I want to be that gangster. I want to really, for us men, I think ultimately we want to be able to write our own death song. Mm-hmm. Like, we want to go out like Scarface, right?
Wow.
And the ability, man, in the Christian walk, man, like Stephen Furtick says, man, it's not a playground, it's a battleground. Yeah. And we collectively here, we have the opportunity to write our death song. And don't get me wrong, I love Carrie Job. Carrie Job ministers to my soul, but if Carrie Job sings my death song, I've done something incredibly wrong. Like, I need Metallica or Rammstein or, man, that's the calling, and that's the anointing that we have as ministers of the gospel of Jesus Christ. Like, you actually get to live out your calling and your anointing. And for us men, it is so important for us to be able to write our death song. But that's exactly what you and I are doing. We have that ability. But it's the road less traveled. It's more difficult. It's overcoming stigma, and it's doing things that operate in a heavenly way rather than a worldly way. And it just doesn't seem to make sense. You know, we talked about leaving the 99 to go after the one. That makes no fiscal sense. That just doesn't make any until you're the one.
Right.
Yeah.
Until you're the one and you recognize how vitally important. There's a reason why we are equated to sheep. Sheep are the dumbest animals on the planet. Sure. And like a dog returns to its vomit, man, that's what we do. But, man, being able to write our death song, I think that's so important for us men, to have that, to be on that journey, to have the fight, to have the battle. And it doesn't have to come at the expense of everybody around us. We don't have to be the drug dealer. We don't have to be the guy that takes on the mentality that he's got to be able to sleep with a bunch of women in order to feed his ego. Man, it can happen right here. It can happen in the marital marital realm. It can happen in the Christian realm. And man, there's so many organizations popping up left and right that are slowly starting to teach us that this is not a playground, it's a battleground, and we still get to write our death song. We still get to fulfill our capabilities as men.
And I love the point that you brought up about that, because the idea that I think a lot of Christians have is that I'm going to go to church on Wednesday night and Sunday, and I'm going to stay out of the fray. And the other thing that you know, we talked earlier about how there are no happily retired addicts or dealers. Guess what? In a war zone, and you know, I almost feel foolish talking to you about this, but if you don't engage, if you don't choose a side, you're going to get mowed over by one side or the other, right?
I'd rather you be hot or cold.
Exactly.
If you're lukewarm,
And not
I'll spit you out of my
making a
mouth.
choice is still making a
Is
choice.
still
Right.
making a choice, and that's why it's so what God has called us to do is we've chosen an arena, whether it's marriage or addiction,
Right.
and we're engaging. we're actively seeking to claim ground for the kingdom and
Yes.
hold
Right.
that ground.
Yes.
And the more ground we
Right.
have, the more area we have for people to come and find refuge
Yes.
and find the same healing that we've already found in our
Yes.
situations.
And then what we're finding too is once you have brought those people in and they find respite, they find rest and restoration and resurrection, then they are helping you and they are going out. We are actually equipping people once they are in recovery to go back out and fulfill their calling too. That's what you guys
Right.
do at Bridge Builders too.
Yeah.
Right.
You're equipping these people to go and build their part of the kingdom, and that is a huge part,
Yeah.
I think, of all of our callings as well.
Right. So we're going to take a quick break. When we come back on the other side of this, we're going to just continue this conversation. We're going to talk a little bit more about how people can get help if they need help. Because a lot of times you don't know what you don't know. That's our motto for all the
Truth.
couples that we work with is
And-
you don't know what you don't know, let us
Yeah.
help you. And so we're going to give them some good information. So we'll be right back on Crossover Radio.
Radio with a purpose.
Hey, this is Coach Coleman, and I'm the play-by-play voice for your Bethany Broncos. I know there's a lot of guys out there who are trying to kick that nasty tobacco dipping habit, and I know most guys need a little energy boost to try to get them through a long day. And I'm here to give you a solution for both. Grinds Coffee Pouches. Grinds are coffee-filled pouches infused with your favorite flavors, such as wintergreen, mint, vanilla, and many more. All of the ingredients in Grinds are 100% safe for consumption and will add a pep to your step. So head on over to getgrinds.com and use our promo code CMI15 to get 15% off your order today. Again, that's getgrinds.com and use the promo code CMI15 to get 15% off of your order. It's time to rise and grinds with Grinds today.
Experience a new look at H2 Salon, located at 5808 Northwest 63rd in MacArthur. H2 Salon is locally owned and operated, featuring experienced hairstylists, such as Hair by Haley Hayes, specializing in men's, women's, and kids' hair. Create the color and cut you've been waiting for. They also offer facial waxing and chemical services. Booths are still available at H2 Salon. Walk-ins are always available, or you can set an appointment by calling 728-1122. That's 728-1122.
And we are back with George and Meredith Shafer from S.T.O.R.M Ministries here on Crossover Radio with a purpose.
On the Building Bridges with Steve and Melissa show. So thanks everybody for jumping on here and hanging out with us. You know, we have quite a few people watching us off and on here this morning. And I know we have some ex-military people watching. We have some just regular. We have some moms.
The burden of being a multimedia star here on Building Bridges is heavy, but we've chosen to carry it.
Man, I love it.
It's the cross we pick up every day, and we are not selfish here. We are willing to share our spotlight with you today.
Man, we're so grateful for that. Thank you for allowing us to hang out with you guys on this incredible platform. We were just talking about that.
Yeah, and so let's talk a little bit. You know what? I don't know. I personally do not know a family that drug addiction hasn't touched.
Yep.
Or some. Steve, our addiction. You know, there's it's more than just drugs and alcohol.
That's right.
It's you know, it's pornography, it's sex, it's
Gambling.
Gambling. If you can name it, people can be addicted to it.
Yes.
You know, and so yeah, the phone, medias. We're on radio, George. You got to talk. You can't just wave your phone and
sorry.
say, "Oh, this is what I'm talking about."
George now picks up his phone and waves it to you.
And so,
it's funny you talk about the phone because the most recent update now tells me how much screen time I have.
Me too.
You've had so many hours of screen time. And
Yes.
it's like, you mean I spent all of Sunday, every hour of Sunday on my phone?
So I picked up. So I have a bat phone, like it's my secret phone, so I can. Because a lot of people have this number. A lot of people, and that's fantastic.
no, it's like
But
my
I
phone
need to
number's
disconnect.
all over the world.
Yes, I need to disconnect. So I have this other phone, and I don't use it very often. So I pick it up, and it said, your usage has increased by 133,000%. Like, he literally told me that. I was like, oh, I'm convicted. Like, oh my gosh.
I like bragged because I was down 13%.
Nice. I picked up
Break it
yours
free.
and a bunch of other people's evidence.
All
it
right.
was a technical glitch, right? It was all the phone's fault.
It was Russian bots using your bat phone.
You guys talked about addiction and your story, and it was really strange. I don't know if this is meant for somebody listening, but it really was for you. I know your guys' story, and man, first off, let's give honor where honor is due. Meredith and Melissa, man, right? Bravo! Thank you.
How
Thank
sweet of
you.
them. Look at us,
Thank
we
you.
rock.
You guys, you guys on so many levels have. I say that Meredith has shown me the true face of God. By not leaving with all of the wreckage, with all of the pain, with all of the confusion, both my own and hers, and holding a family together during that time. Man, ladies, thank you. But this word is for Steve. Steve, from one addict to another. I just recently, I'm gonna brag. I just got my 5-year sobriety.
Congrats!
But
So
5
awesome.
years,
So proud of you.
but 5 years down the road, I'm still working on cleaning up the wreckage of my addiction. It still rears its ugly head. So, man, ladies, first and foremost, you guys are incredible. You guys show the face of Jesus every single day. But man, this word is for you. I couldn't go to sleep last night, and I have to tell you, you didn't leave either. And that would have been the easy thing to do. Marriages across this nation are being ravaged by addiction, by shame, by isolation. And you had the opportunity to turn tail and run. You never had to hear about your addiction ever again. You never had to face the shame. You never had to look your wife in the eyes again and reassure her for the 10th, 100th, 100,000th time that, babe, I screwed up and you are the one for me, and I am so very sorry. And you didn't leave. And that part, understandably so, ladies, wow, I have no idea how much strength that it must have had to take to watch your loved one literally disintegrate and to stand by him. But man, there's another part of this story that needs to be told. You want to talk about the flannel wearing, beard having, sheer badassery of being a man. You encompass that, my friend, because you could have left. You could have said, the heck with this. I don't want to be reminded of my transgressions. I don't want to have to look you in the face anymore. In fact, you know what? I'm tired of hearing about it. I am more than just my addiction, but you are still here. You are still leading with godly authority. You are looking the enemy in the face and you're saying, this is my ground. The Lord has given this to me to steward, and I will not give it up without a fight. And you, man, you are giving a shining example of what recovery and authentic manhood is supposed to look like, and I am so grateful for that in my life.
I think that's awesome.
Retreat is easy, but
That's
we're not called to retreat.
We're
called to take ground and hold it. And you were talking about our wives and what they've been through, and the scripture that flashed through my mind when you said that was, he who forgives much is forgiven much. And I'm not sure how many times my wife can screw up before she even gets close to making the ledger even on this.
Seriously, right?
She's bought herself a lot of wiggle room in our marriage over the last few years.
I'm so glad to hear him say that.
She could be getting a massage from the pool boy and be like,
you did say you had a coupon for the massage, so it's like you're really only thinking of our budget.
It goes back to stewardship.
Yeah,
really.
exactly.
And I think you know, it's funny because in our family we struggled with both.
The trick about that is we don't have a pool, but there's a pool boy at our house. Have you heard of that?
You know, it's interesting because Stephen and I have stood up from a platform and talked about porn addiction because that's our issue. And you guys have stood up from a platform and talked about drug addiction because that's your issue. And for us, we always say, like, drug addicts, they got it a little easier than porn addicts, right? Sexual addicts. Because if you know this, if you are a drug addict and you've been clean for 3 days, everybody stands up on their table and cheers and claps and hoorahs how wonderful you are.
You
Right.
carry your
You
5-year
carry your 5-year coin,
really
right?
proudly.
And
Right.
if you struggle with sexual addiction or pornography or something like that, even though 8 out of 10 guys struggle with it,
Yes.
and you know, you're like, I haven't surfed porn in 10 years. Every mom still tucks their daughter behind their backs, and you're still on some level a pervert.
But
a
why aren't
molester.
we talking
Right.
about
Nobody,
this?
so our goal is to take the shame out of it and
Yes.
say, listen, hey, addiction
Yes.
is the fruit of a wound. Let's go.
Yes.
Let's go heal the wound.
And with the
fruit will take
arrival,
care of
with the
itself.
arrival of virtual reality,
Oh
yeah,
my gosh.
and AI is going to make this.
let me tell
escalate
you, between
ridiculous.
AI and virtual reality, I'm not going to get too graphic this early in the morning. But let me tell you that right now, a pornographer, which is an actual job that you can go to school for,
Wow.
the pornographers are learning, studying. You want to talk about strategic warfare? Virtual reality, AI. I won't get any more in depth, but I will tell you that they are in the process of figuring out how to implement the smells of sex. You want to talk about captivating the addicted mind. You want to talk about ruining relationships,
Absolutely.
destroying the covenant of marriage. Man, what you and I grew up with, which was hiding the Playboy out in the forest, right?
Yep, in between the mattress and the box.
Right? Yeah. And we thought
Nobody
we were so
was
clever.
there.
Nobody
Y'all are
looks
so
there.
smart.
Like, why do you have a year-round cold? Oh, never mind. But there's but our children are facing warfare of a magnitude that we have never seen.
Okay, everybody who thinks that George is just talking nonsense, go watch Ready Player One.
Yes,
You
I've heard that.
You see a whole generation that is addicted to virtual reality.
Yes.
And they don't do anything. It's a situation, and it's gonna happen. I mean, it's ludicrous, but they are working to replace your husbands and wives with computer programs and robots. And you talked about isolation. When you don't need another person for anything because it's being fed to you, what you want is being fed to you electronically. It is the downfall of the society you live in.
And one of the things that Stephen and I say all the time is relationships are the currency of the kingdom. And if that's true, AI is the
Counterfeit.
enemy, the counterfeit of the real deal of the relationship. We've got to take another commercial break, you guys. I hate to butt in here, but we gotta let the sponsors do their thing. When we come back, we'll just continue on this conversation. We got 15 more minutes to tie this up.
And we could go another 3 hours.
And I was thinking maybe George and Meredith could come back next week and the week after that.
And the week
we
after
could just
that.
keep going
Man,
this
that'd
out
be so
for a while.
fun.
Because there's so much to talk about.
Yes.
We could call it storm over built bridges or something.
Yes.
Just make it
Bridge into the
Love it.
storm.
bridge into the
Storm.
storm. I like
We
it.
need to work
Yeah.
with you guys more often. Okay, time for our
Here's our break. We promised
Make
it's-
that money.
It's coming at you.
Experience a new look at H2 Salon, located at 5808 Northwest 63rd in MacArthur. H2 Salon is locally owned and operated, featuring experienced hairstylists, such as Hair by Haley Hayes, specializing in men's, women's, and kids' hair. Create the color and cut you've been waiting for. They also offer facial waxing and chemical services. Booths are still available at H2 Salon. Walk-ins are always available, or you can set an appointment by calling 728-1122. That's 728-1122.
Hi, my name is Nick Tarter, and I'm one of the pastors at New Covenant Fellowship in Bethany, Oklahoma. We are located at 6736 Northwest 39th Expressway, inside of S.T.O.R.M. No matter your age, background, or past church experience, we want to invite you to be a part of our family. We are a church where you can belong, even while you're still trying to figure out who God has made you to be. We meet each Sunday morning at 9:30 a.m. right here at S.T.O.R.M. for small groups, and at 10:45 a.m. for our community worship celebration. We also meet on Wednesday nights at 7 o'clock p.m. to talk about gospel and what it looks like to live together as a Christian community. You can find out more about us by visiting newcovenantokc.org, or, of course, you could just come by for a visit. I look forward to personally greeting you when you do.
Welcome back to Building Bridges with Steve and Melissa on Crossover Radio, and I would be remiss if I didn't remind everybody out there that while we are wrapping up at 9 o'clock, there is plenty of great programming available on Crossover Radio all day long. You can take us with you on your device. If the lovely Melissa would show everybody. We have Google Play and App Store available, so regardless of whatever your Coke or Pepsi preference on your smartphone is, you can download the Crossover Radio app with the orange cross-like logo. You can find it on your phone, take it with you wherever you go. You can get great teaching from Pastor Mike or Nick. You can get sports with me and Jake on Mondays and Fridays. You can get politics. You can get music. I'm not sure you can get any Rammstein or Metallica, but you can still get good music.
And you can. We are also the home of the Bethany Broncos. So.
We are. So you can follow the Broncos as they bounce back from an unexpected loss at Cushing.
So back to our topic here. We got about 10 more minutes before our show's over. And did you want to? Michael says they can't see us, babe. Sometimes we just get so excited about what we're talking about.
Man,
we're
right?
like, oh yeah, we got to punch a few buttons. This too, by the way.
Our break is over, but you know,
but it still says we're on a commercial break.
Really, what people want to see is
Thanks,
the
Michael.
radiant beauty of Melissa and Meredith.
Yes.
And the rugged handsomeness of George.
And but you know, I think it's interesting because no family is untouched.
That's right.
The field, the thing about Satan is that he is constantly looking to make his playground better,
right,
more inviting,
right,
and more destructive at the same time, right?
Yep.
It's the big bait and switch. It's like, come over here where everything's fun and glorious and glamorous and wonderful and terrific, but we're going to kill you,
right?
You know, and you're going to. But what we're not going to tell you is you're going to die when you get here. And again, you know, Stephen and I had this conversation at one point in our marriage, and we talked about how his addiction was causing our marriage to. I mean, I love you, and I'm here to the end of this, and we're gonna walk through this. We're gonna navigate it. We're gonna heal the wounds. We're gonna move forward. But our marriage is becoming collateral damage in the process. And I think marriages take. You're right. It does. Not to pat Meredith and I on the back, but we. How do you? Let me ask you this, because this is a really tough question, and we get this sometimes. Is there a point where the spouse of an addict should no longer stay present?
Yes.
Safety is always a concern. You know, if you're in an unsafe situation, that doesn't mean you have to leave the marriage, but it might mean that you have to separate yourself for a while.
Right.
So that is always first and foremost.
Yeah, and we would never counsel anyone to stay in an unsafe environment physically. And I think emotional abuse is as detrimental as physical violence. The truth is, the Bible says that words have the power of life and death.
That's right.
And so you can kill a person with your words and never harm their body.
Sure.
And so that's important too. But so, you know, for us, both of our boys struggled with drug addiction. So we've handled addiction from several different venues in our family. And you know, I was a great enabler, right? Your kid was
too. Your
kid was an addict, and mine was just wounded. You know, like,
right.
Yes,
we are inherently special, aren't we?
Yes.
Like,
oh my gosh.
Oh, you're the real addict.
But there are no wounds that a new truck won't cure.
Right.
Man,
That was me. And so, But is there a time when we have to say? I had a guy say one time, people never change till they hit the bottom, and our job is to raise the bottom.
Yeah.
And but is there a time when people should leave, and what would that look like for you guys? How would you, how do you counsel something like that?
So we don't.
You send them to Melissa. No, I'm just teasing.
Yes, we send
Yes,
to professionals. And honestly, man, I wish addiction was just so easy that I could say, man, there is a step-by-step process that you can get through, and that will make the person in addiction recognize that they are at rock bottom to go get help. And unfortunately, I can't big box an answer in
There's
that
no
aspect.
formula.
But there is no formula. There is a formula. You just have to find it. And please, 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 if you are a family member, man, it is not your job to find it. Let somebody who is not emotionally invested, somebody with experience, pick up on the cues that are occurring in the situation. Man, if you are a family member, get your tail to an Al-Anon meeting just as soon as you possibly can, because you're going to learn from other family members who have been there and done that. You're going to learn what enabling truly is, and please know you cannot logically figure out the chaos that is the disease of addiction. As smart as you are, as educated as you are, let me tell you, it's people that are educated and have these degrees. Those are some of the most difficult people to walk through with this, because they feel like they can navigate these waters, and those waters are not meant to be navigated by somebody who's emotionally connected to the disease.
That is absolutely
and
right.
I just think it's so important that you brought up Al-Anon, because the groups for the addicts are well known. The groups for the family and spouses of the addicts have a significantly lower profile, but they're out there, and the people who are dealing with the addict in the day-to-day need to know that there is a support network for
That's
them
another
as
reason
well.
S.T.O.R.M exists, because when we were going through our own addiction crisis, there was a lot that we could do for him, even though it was a steep learning curve. We didn't know what was going on. I felt lost, alone, overwhelmed. I did not realize what resources were available for me. Yes, I isolated out of, nobody's going to understand the crazy going on behind the closed doors at my house.
And
what
I'm not
do
sharing
I do
those with anybody, by the way.
Right.
Yes.
But there's Al-Anon. There's also for parents. There's a group called
Parents
Helping Parents.
Yep.
That gets you connected with other people that are in similar situations where you have a child in addiction or maybe post-addiction. That's helpful. There's Celebrate Recovery classes that help with any kind of addiction or for the loved ones of addiction, because like you said,
And Celebrate
not just
Recovery
drugs
comes
or
in
alcohol.
multiple languages. There's
Exactly.
Spanish language
That's right.
Celebrate Recovery at Victory Church.
Yeah.
Yep.
There are all kinds of resources for those of us who love someone in addiction, or just we need to get healthy too. And like he said, we're still working on our own restoration. And it's not just, if he gets better, then all our problems are solved. No, I have to get better too.
Right,
Things have changed for me, and restoration happens when the whole family gets better.
Because the brokenness that was my addiction caused and accentuated some of the brokenness in her.
Yes.
And so if we just fix me and don't fix her, our relationship is still going to run crappy.
Yeah. He's still getting cut by my broken pieces.
Yeah.
Right. And I want to give us a different verbiage just for something Steve just said. If we fix Steve and we don't fix Melissa, I want to say if we bring healing to Steve, but we don't bring healing to Melissa, because fix can be really misconstrued and put in a lot of different, like that can get sideways really
fix
fast.
is not always a good thing for an addict.
Right.
Healing is what brings restoration. Healing is what brings hope, and that is all facilitated, I believe, through the relationship with the Lord Jesus Christ.
Yes.
And I know people who have gotten sober without salvation, but the people who have gotten healed, the people who have gotten healed through salvation, it's just an extra level. It's exponentially higher.
Yes.
My son, when he was coming out of his issues with PTSD and addiction and stuff like that, and he told me one day, he said, Mom, there was two things that silenced the chaos in my head, the memories, the voices, all of that, and one was drugs and one was Jesus.
Wow.
And those were the only two things I found that have silenced all of the stuff I brought home with me.
That's amazing.
And so for him, of course, he's a pastor now, right? He's doing great.
Yes.
It's life. God has totally redeemed his life, and I think that's awesome. I just want to end the show out with this, with a sending help to anybody who's listening, whether they're listening today live on our Facebook page, whether they're listening, later because they live in a different time zone, or whether they're listening 10 years later because it's on our, it's archived and everybody can go back and watch our shows. There is hope for you.
Amen.
There is help out there. If you're addicted, especially if you're in the Oklahoma City metro area or in our area, we do video. So you don't even have to be in our area, because for us, we do video counseling with people and stuff like that. So you can get a hold of us if you struggle with sexual addiction of any kind. Can we invite you to contact Bridge Builder Marriage Ministry? Let us help you. Do you know that we have not lost a single marriage because of pornography addictions in the history of our ministry?
Wow.
We have not lost a single marriage.
Amen.
And how do people reach out to S.T.O.R.M?
And that's what I was gonna say. And if you're struggling with any kind of chemical addiction, gambling addiction, addiction of any, whatever, contact S.T.O.R.M, and you can get them at storminc.org.
Or you can call our main office line, 405-503-7442. You can find us on Facebook at S.T.O.R.M Inc. And our website has forms you can fill out if you want to stay anonymous, or try to keep it confidential. We always value that as well. So reach out. Don't do this by yourselves.
We do too. You can reach us through at bridgebuildermm.org. You can call us on our phone at 405-740-3704. And every single thing, I can guarantee you this. If you reach out to S.T.O.R.M or you reach out to Bridge Builder Marriage Ministry, everything is confidential. Listen, we are not talking about if you ever hear us talk about somebody that we worked with, it's 100% with their permission, because they told their story first. And so whether it's because we talked a little bit earlier about how pornography is a shameful addiction. Listen, we're going to meet. We don't care if you're a pastor. We don't care if you're a congregant in a church. We don't care if you're 14 years old. We're gonna. There's help for you. There's hope for you. So call us. So we have run out of time here on Building Bridges with Steve and Melissa, but it has been our absolute privilege to have Georgia and Meredith Shafer.
Man, thank you
We
guys
would love
so
for you
much.
guys to come back again sometime.
Man, we'd love to.
We can maybe do this once a month and still have a great time.
Yes.
So we'll work out some details on that. So thanks for joining us here on Building Bridges with Steve and Melissa.
And we will be back same time next week, 8 p.m. Central.
8 a.m.
8 a.m. Central. And if you want to listen to the playback at 8 p.m. Central, you're certainly welcome to. But we will be here new and fresh at 8 a.m. Central next week here on Crossover Radio, radio with a purpose.
Beautiful to touch me. I know that I'm married.